But up next, Chase Calakut, top 247 safety out of North Shore, Galena Park, North Shore. Kind of low key a defensive back factory, but with him has the top three at Texas, Michigan, Georgia, announcing his commitment on Friday at OT7 as his national tournament in Fort Lauderdale. That's where he's announcing it at. I think it'll be live streamed somewhere. But I don't want to say Michigan's out of it, but this is going down. It's going to be Texas or Georgia. Some think Texas, some think Georgia. Both staffs have confidence, and for good reason. Chase Calakut has given both of those staffs very good reasons as to why they should have confidence. But on the outside of this thing, he's telling people around him different things. He's telling reporters different things. And it's not what he's saying on record, it's what he's saying off record. So I currently lean Georgia. I know my crystal ball says Texas. All three of them say Texas. I think Texas still has a shot to win this thing on Friday. But I am currently leaning Georgia 4 days out from the decision. But I want to clarify, Texas can still win this thing. And I also do think it's worth bringing up, like, Chase Calakut and Devon Benjamin, those are the top two safety targets. Calakut is likely coming off the board first unless Benjamin commits between now and Friday, which I don't think is happening. If Texas misses on Calakut, I think the chances of getting Benjamin go up. After the Benjamin OV, June 6 to 8, Texas felt as if it was going to be them versus Oregon. Oregon has a big need at DB, but they did land Jet Washington. So, where would Devon Benjamin fit in over there? Not sure. Jet Washington is very expensive and is a prospect that is going to make more money than Devon Benjamin, no matter which way you look at it. But Benjamin's still expensive. Is Oregon going to pay both of those guys top dollar? I'm not sure. So if Calakut doesn't end up at Texas, he ends up picking Georgia on Friday. I think the chances go up for Benjamin. But if Texas misses on Benjamin, and let's say he commits to Oregon in, I don't know, July, like Texas will have a shot to flip Calakut in the fall, whereas they won't really have one with Benjamin, in my opinion. So just something to note. This one is going to go all the way till signing day. And again, leaning Georgia, but Texas can still pull this one out. We've seen crazier things happen. And I mean, yeah, Will, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
I think you got it on that one. We'll go to the next one.
Okay. Yeah.
Here we go. Deari Simeon out of Richland, New Jersey. This is a guy that, has had a Texas offer for a long time. And then there wasn't really, his recruitment just wasn't very public for a while. Picked up offers from UC, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Michigan. Those are the four finalists. Basically every school in the Big Ten, every school in the, on the other side of the Mason-Dixon line, basically. And is pretty highly ranked, especially in the composite. But didn't have a ton of connection to Texas until, I would say, February or March. He set up an unofficial visit, made it to campus. Actually didn't make it to campus one time, ended up coming in April. Had a really good time, had really good things to say about Texas, and then returned for the official visit on June 13th. That was kind of important scheduling because, Texas would have preferred, I think, to have him on campus this past weekend, be the last ones, because Ohio State has always been, kind of thought of as the team to watch out for here. And they get the last one. From what it sounds like, it is Texas versus Ohio State versus Penn State. Doesn't seem like Michigan is really in this one anymore. Penn State has a pretty big need at defensive line in this class. I don't believe they have any so far. And as we know, Texas has done a really good job already with Corey Wells, Dylan Behrman, and Bodney Cleveland. And then you've got, Richard Wesley coming off the edge and Marion Carlson on the way. There aren't unlimited spots. Would Deari Simeon, be welcomed in the class if he said, I'm going to commit? Absolutely. We haven't gotten the feeling that that's happened yet or will happen yet, but I think this one has been open enough where it could very easily go Texas's way, if not, as mentioned, Ohio State or Penn State. So
For sure.
Looking forward to getting some more information on this in the next couple of days, because this is coming up here on Friday. So
one thing – or sorry, finish.
Go ahead.
I was saying one thing that I think is interesting. Officially visited Ohio State this past weekend. Spent some time on Ohio State sites yesterday. Pretty much every one of them reported whatever NIL number he's asking for is too high, and Ohio State isn't going to pay it. So, and there's also some other words added in there that I don't quite remember, but usually whenever you see sites in a market of a school kind of go rogue and start saying whatever this kid is asking for is too high or whatnot, that means that staff told those reporters, like, we're not taking this kid. We're not paying this. So, that being said, I don't want to say Ohio State's out of it, but I'd be kind of surprised if he ends up there at this point based off what has been reported since his Ohio State OB. And then, like you said, Penn State, Michigan. He highlighted how academics are going to be like the biggest focal point in his recruitment. I doubt that is the case, but if that is the case, it'll be Michigan versus Texas. At this point, he can't make a wrong decision. Those are three great, Big Ten schools, and Texas is the SEC school, kind of the outlier. But, I mean, we'll see. Like you said, Texas, they're not going to tell him no. We think Kendall Gervil will end up in Austin come July 2nd. He announces commitment. We'll obviously get to that here soon. But, they would take Deari Simeon and still take Kendall Gervil on July 2nd. They're not going to tell these guys no just because they're at 4. And they're also not stupid either. If they take 5, they know there probably isn't, the super high chance they will end up signing all 5. It's just how numbers work, and people are going to try to pick apart the class, in the season. So, with Simeon, I think a big thing too, Kenny Baker gets so much credit in this one. Obviously, he's been killing it. He's been on a heater. I think he's recruited better than any coach this cycle on Texas' staff. But in this one, it was not the unofficial visit to Texas that put them in this. It was the May, during May, the spring evaluation recruiting period. Kenny Baker went all the way up to New Jersey to see him. I'm almost positive he was the only prospect in the Northeast that Kenny Baker saw. And he met with him in his head coach's office for, I think, 1 or 2 hours. That is when his OV to Texas got scheduled. That is when Texas became a real threat. And, while some might say, oh, Texas is only getting these guys because they're paying them, those numbers aren't getting discussed till they get on the OV the large majority of the time. And it's Kenny Baker, through relationship building, being a genuine guy that has won a lot of these kids over, and convincing him to, hey, you don't just got to look in Big Ten country. Come check us out in Austin on the other side of the country. So I think Kenny Baker deserves a lot of credit for just putting them in this one. The last New Jersey kid that, Texas was after was Sadir Mitchell, at least on the D-line. And he chose Texas over Georgia. And that one purely came down to who was going to pay him the most. And Texas and Georgia went back and forth. Eventually, Texas won out. And how did that one turn out for Texas? Not great. He's gone. So just talking about more appreciation for Kenny Baker. He's getting a lot of credit. He's deserving of every bit of it. And Texas fans they should be grateful for him because it's a night and day difference from the last guy. So I'll say that. You want to move on to next one?
Yeah, I'll move on to the other side of the ball with Malachi Lee, number 14 offensive tackle in the country. Malachi Lee, we talked about this on the show last week and the week before, that he earned an offer from Kyle Flood right after Kyle Flood got to Austin. When the Sark staff was first assembled, he was in 8th grade at the time. Traveled to Austin around then for a visit and then didn't come back until his official. Spoke really highly of Texas, but Alabama's had a lot of momentum here for a long time. Michigan has also had a lot of momentum. If I had to put a pick in today, I would lean Alabama. I think they've been in this one longer and just had a more complete recruitment with him and been able to see him. But Georgia, is still in there for sure. They actually, not only did they get him for an official in April, they got him back on campus for an unofficial in June. So that's definitely something of note. And kind of interesting there, Stacey Searles recruiting for Georgia there, the father of Texas director of on-campus recruiting, Taylor Searles. So Little family rivalry going on here. Not the first time, won't be the last. But like I said, if I had to predict, a spot for Malachi Lee, I think Texas has probably increased their chances this summer, but it still seems like Alabama has just had the more complete process with him and been around a mainstay for longer. Not to say that Texas wasn't early to offer, because obviously they were. But Alabama's just recruited him a little bit harder than Texas ever did.
Yeah, this one is interesting. He didn't take a summer OV to Georgia. He took one in April. It was his first OV, and then went June 6th through 8th to Texas. Bama, he saw May 30th through June 1st, but he took an unofficial to Georgia the 13th through the 15th weekend, and then Michigan, obviously. And I don't want to say Bama's out of it, but like from what I've heard, I think they are the probably fourth place,
really,
or least likely. He obviously was at Bama right before the Texas OV, and coming out of that, Texas thought it was them versus Michigan. Was at Michigan, this past weekend, like we said. But one thing I keep hearing about him is like the NIL numbers that are being discussed for him are significantly higher than like what kids he's ranked at usually get. And it's because these schools are higher on him than what, the recruiting industry is. And that's fine. Stars and all that. It's about draft projection 3-4 years from now. But with Lee, he's a true offensive tackle, just like Felix Ojo. Could he be a true left tackle? I think so. Not quite to the level of Ojo, but he's more of a true tackle than John Turntine is. That is for sure. And, with these numbers being thrown out at him, Georgia's being very, very, very aggressive. They would not have OV'd him in April and then figured out a way to get him all the way to Athens again in the middle of the summer when this kid is a Hawaii kid. Like, that is a far trip to make twice in the span of 2 months. So, with him, I'd watch out for Georgia, Michigan. I think those two are probably more of a threat than Bama, but I mean, we'll see. A lot of different things can unfold, and Bama under the DeBoer staff have done pretty honestly a great job at recruiting Polynesians from the West Coast. They landed Samu too earlier this summer, top 247 guard tackle tweener from SoCal. So with Lee, I just went and looked at Georgia, kind of their recruiting outlook on O-line. They have 3 IOL takes and then 1 true tackle take. Akina Ugboko, who could play left or right tackle, probably a true left tackle. And if Lee was to end up there, he'd be right. So I'm curious how that is going to factor into the decision. We haven't heard if he prefers left or right. Most kids prefer left because it's more money, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. Texas can definitely land him, and I mean, it's fascinating to think too, because Turntine and Ojo have been like the 2 main guys for Texas fans this whole cycle, and I mean, Malachi Lee could very well end up committing to Texas before any of them do. So just thought that was interesting, but it could still be Alabama. I lean more towards Texas, Michigan, or Georgia, though. And again, like, this is a player that all these schools are higher on than the recruiting industry is. So I always think that's interesting, because usually it's the opposite way around.
The next one we have is I would say the second highest rated prospect that Texas is still in the mix for. Xavier Griffin out of Gainesville, Georgia, the number 1 linebacker in the country. It is down to Florida State, Texas, Alabama, and Ohio State. As you may remember, Xavier Griffin was a longtime USC commit, reopened his recruitment, I want to say middle of May, and is now going to decide on the 29th, which is Sunday, I believe. So Texas had him on the 13th. Florida State got the last visit, but I don't think that's one that this isn't one of the situations where the last visit really meant a ton, because Alabama has been the team to watch since well before he decommitted from USC, and I think it'll stay that way until Sunday. I think this is Texas or Alabama. Texas has some decisions to make at linebacker in terms of where they want to spend their money. As we know, coming out of the weekend, Tyler Atkinson, who's the number 2 linebacker in the country, is very, very interested in Texas. And I would imagine that PK and Johnny Nansen feel like they have a fair shot there. Tyler Atkinson, Xavier Griffin duo would cost you more than just about anything in this recruiting cycle. So I wouldn't imagine both of them. In a best case scenario, you do get one of them though. I think in the best case scenario, you get Xavier Griffin. Although when he goes to Alabama, you're gonna have to reshape your plans. Jordan, I don't know if you have anything more, but that's kind of my take. Alabama's been the team to watch for the last month and a half, and I think they still will be.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, they're going to have to get Griffin or Atkinson. Texas has higher chances of keeping Atkinson from going to Georgia than I think Texas has higher chance. And Texas has lower chances of keeping Griffin from going to Bama.
Yes.
So of those two, currently leading Atkinson and DJ Dog. Saw you ask about the arm length. I just went through Under Armour, I think Hawaii or Honolulu, the data I have from last summer, and he was not there. Also looked at Under Armour LA, and he was not there. So I don't know if we had like third-party verified info from him or for him, or if it's just measurements from visits he's gone on. But I'll try to figure it out. I know for a fact, though, that it's at least 34. The numbers he'd be getting, he wouldn't be getting. So there's that. And how about this one, Will? Do you think rednecks like Roll Tide Willie are familiar with the Hawkeye?
Yes, I feel like there's been enough Pacific Islanders that have come through, Bama, where they're bound to know it. I think Roll Tide Willie especially. I think
Will,
he knows it.
Can you name me one Polynesian player that went to Alabama not named Sam Utu? Because I can think of one.
It does do the Tagovailoa brothers not count as Polynesian?
That is true. Forgot about them. Okay. I was going Henry To'o.
And he
linebacker they tampered with from Tennessee.
Yeah.
But I guess we can keep it moving. Who do we got
On
next?
to the next one. Another 5-star. It's Trenton Henderson this time. Announced yesterday that he is down to Texas, Florida, and LSU. Texas came completely out of nowhere in this recruitment. Hadn't had him on campus prior to a June unofficial visit. He came on, I believe it was right around the 10th, and then announced that he had canceled a planned official visit to USC, ends up coming to Texas this past weekend. We were not able to talk with him, and to this point has not talked about Texas at all, and how they've kind of fit into this recruitment. So really going to be interesting to see how this one progresses over the next 10 days. Florida has been thought of as the team to look out for a while now. LSU does not feel great, so it feels like that puts Texas right in the middle. You just landed Richard Wesley, and you're very likely to land Jamarian Carlton at some point, in the next couple of weeks here. So does Trenton Henderson completely fit into this class with what he's going to cost? I'm not sure, but you have your bases covered. That's what I'll say. Again, of course, Texas would take a commitment from him, but I'm not sure he's exactly in the plans.
Yeah, Texas thinks it's them versus Florida. You can't count out LSU, though. Yes, he's an in-state Florida kid, but Baton Rouge is actually a closer drive than
that's right.
Gainesville is.
Totally, yeah.
So that part is interesting. I don't know why Michigan is on there because he cut it to a top 3 yesterday. We need to update his profile, but hey, Texas thinks it's them versus Florida. I think that's very interesting because he's a 5-star battling 2 other SEC programs. He's going to cost a lot, and Richard Wesley costed a lot. And Henderson, I think he could play either edge spot in Texas' defense, the Jack or the Buck. But Richard Wesley is going to be a Jack, and Henderson profiles more to being a Jack. So the numbers start going up at an exponential rate because Florida's going to do whatever it takes to get him. I don't know if Texas plays ball because Jamarian Carlton, if they land him, he's another 5-star, borderline 5-star edge rusher who's probably more versatile than Henderson and how they can grow into different positions years from now. Henderson is always going to be an edge one way or another. Carlton can grow into a 300-pound defensive lineman, a true IDL. So I think that part is very interesting. Is Texas, are they I don't know what they're giving Richard Wesley, but to land Henderson, it would require something very similar, if not more. And those are both very expensive players because the jumbo athletes that are big enough to hold it down on the perimeter as a jack are much harder to find than the Bucks. Just because of the body types and other like boxes that the Jacks have to check compared to the Bucks. So again, he can end up on either side, but I'm very, very, very curious to hear what these NIL offers are. Because like I said, with that kind of nuanced thing with the edge outlook and other stuff, it's going to be fascinating. It will be interesting, and he's committing July 2nd. So does that affect Jamarian Carlton? I'm not sure. He's committing July 10th, so we will see. A lot of things that have to play out here.